I need to tell you something that is going to feel deeply uncomfortable, something that directly contradicts everything your parents taught you, everything your teachers repeated, and everything your boss reminds you of every single day. Working hard is destroying your wealth. I know how that sounds. It sounds like the classic justification a lazy person uses to sit on the couch. But I am not a lazy person. I am Kobe Bryant. I am 95 years old. I still go to the office every single day, and I have built over $140 billion in personal wealth. And I am telling you directly, the way most people define hard work is the single greatest obstacle standing between them and true financial freedom. The problem isn't effort. Effort is noble. The problem is that society has conditioned you to confuse being busy with being productive. You have confused motion with progress. You have confused physical exhaustion with actual accomplishment. And this confusion is not an accident. It is entirely by design. The economic system doesn't reward the hardest workers. It rewards the smartest thinkers. The system needs you to keep grinding, keep showing up, and keep trading your life force for a paycheck so that the people at the top can capture the massive spread between the value you produce and what you are actually paid. Tonight, I am going to show you the precise mechanics of how conventional hard work destroys your wealth and exactly what the truly wealthy do instead. This is not motivational fluff. This is the structural reality of how money works. The first way hard work destroys your wealth is through the effort illusion. This is the deeply ingrained, irrational belief that the amount of effort you exert directly determines the reward you receive. It sounds so logical: work twice as hard, earn twice as much. Put in more hours, get more results. Stay later than everyone else, and the corner office is yours. But let's look at reality. Does a surgeon who spends 8 grueling hours in an operating room earn the same as a fast food worker who also grinds for 8 hours? Of course not. The surgeon earns 50 to 100 times more. Why? Because the market doesn't care about sweat. The value is entirely in the skill, the knowledge, the positioning, and the leverage behind those hours. When I was 26 years old, I started the Buffett partnership with just $105,000. I didn't outwork the factory workers in Omaha. I didn't wake up earlier than the farmers in Nebraska. What I did was think radically differently about where to place every single dollar. I read 500 pages a day, not because someone forced me to, but because every page I turned gave me a compounding edge in understanding which businesses would dominate over decades. The factory worker trades effort for wages. I traded insight for ownership. We both had the exact same 24 hours in a day, but the outcomes were worlds apart. Not because I worked harder, but because I worked on the right things. Effort without direction is just sweat, and sweat does not compound. Knowledge compounds. Ownership compounds. Strategic positioning compounds. Effort by itself is the lowest value input in the wealth equation. The second destructive trap is the time for money ceiling. If your income depends entirely on your physical presence and active labor, your wealth faces a hard mathematical limit. That limit is the 24 hours in a day. Let's run the math. Imagine you are an elite, highly paid professional, a brilliant lawyer, billing a massive $400 an hour. You work a brutal 60 hours a week, 50 weeks a year. That totals $1,200,000 annually. It sounds incredible, doesn't it? But here is the fatal flaw. To earn that money, you must remain physically present, mentally sharp, and actively billing for 3,000 hours a year. If you get sick, your income drops to zero. If you take a vacation, the money stops. If you burn out, and at 60 hours a week, you will burn out. The entire engine collapses. You have zero leverage. You are selling the only truly non-renewable resource you possess, your time. Now, look at how Berkshire Hathaway operates. Berkshire owns massive, productive businesses that generate staggering revenue 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. The Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railway moves heavy freight while I sleep. Geico sells insurance policies while I eat lunch. Apple sells iPhones across the globe while I read the morning newspaper. I do not need to be present for a single one of those transactions. Last year, Berkshire Hathaway generated over $30 billion in operating earnings. I personally worked maybe 6 hours a day, 5 days a week. My income per hour cannot be calculated in any meaningful way because my income is completely decoupled from my time. This is the ultimate dividing line. The middle class sells time. The wealthy own systems. You cannot work your way to true wealth by selling hours because hours have a ceiling. Systems do not. A business can scale infinitely. An investment portfolio can compound exponentially. But your body and mind have physical limits. And when you push past those limits, hard work doesn't just stop making you richer, it starts making you poorer because you no longer have the mental bandwidth to think strategically. This brings us directly to the third wealth destroyer, the exhaustion tax. This is the catastrophic hidden cost of being so busy working that you make terrible, lazy decisions with the money you actually do earn. Think about the anatomy of a 12-hour workday. You come home physically drained, mentally depleted, and emotionally spent. You are too tired to cook, so you buy expensive, unhealthy convenience food. You are too exhausted to research market opportunities, so you let your hard-earned cash sit in a standard savings account, allowing inflation to quietly incinerate its purchasing power. You are too drained to negotiate your salary or your terms, so you passively accept whatever is offered. You are too tired to read an insightful book on business strategy, so you numb your brain with television. You fail to notice that your financial advisor is skimming wealth-destroying fees right off the top of your retirement account. Exhaustion doesn't just steal your energy, it completely blindfolds your judgment. And in the world of compounding wealth, poor judgment is the most expensive liability you can ever hold. Every major market-moving investment decision I have ever made was executed from a position of absolute calm, rested clarity. When I decided to invest $500 million in Goldman Sachs during the absolute height of the 2008 financial crisis, I wasn't panicking. I wasn't running on 4 hours of sleep or frantic energy. I was sitting quietly in my office in Omaha, reading financial statements, drinking a cherry Coke, and thinking with total clarity. That single decision generated over $3 billion in profit. It wasn't because I worked harder than anyone else during the panic. It was because I preserved the mental space to think clearly while everyone else was too exhausted and terrified to see straight. The exhaustion tax compounds in reverse. A single poor financial decision made because you were too tired to think properly doesn't just cost you the immediate money, it costs you the decades of compound growth that money would have generated. You must protect your mental energy with the same fierce intensity that you protect your capital. They are one and the same. The fourth way hard work destroys you is through opportunity blindness. When you are buried deep in the daily grind, head down, frantically focused on the immediate task in front of your face, you become structurally incapable of seeing the macro opportunities that could completely transform your financial destiny. Let me give you a pivotal example from my own life. In 1951, when I was a student at Columbia University, I had every reason to be completely overwhelmed with busy work. I was studying under Benjamin Graham, the legendary father of value investing. I had heavy course loads, assignments, and intense exams. I could have easily filled every waking hour with academic grinding. Instead, I did something that conventional hard workers would call highly irresponsible. I spent an entire Saturday riding a train from New York down to Washington, D.C., without an appointment, just to knock on the door of a closed corporate building. The Geico Insurance headquarters. A custodian happened to let me in. I ended up sitting with a top executive named Lorimer Davidson for 4 straight hours, absorbing more about the mechanics of the insurance industry than any textbook could have taught me in a lifetime. That single afternoon of strategic exploration, not hard labor, shaped the next 70 years of my career. It directly unlocked my understanding of the insurance float model, which ultimately became the economic engine behind Berkshire Hathaway's multi-billion-dollar fortune. In a hard worker that Saturday, grinding through my homework like a good student, I would have completely missed the most important turning point of my professional life. This is the tragedy playing out for millions of people every day. They are so busy executing microtasks that they never lift their heads to scan the horizon. They are so focused on securing the next paycheck that they completely miss the business idea, the investment asymmetry, the career pivot, or the strategic relationship that would have been worth 100 years of paychecks. Hard work creates tunnel vision, and tunnel vision is catastrophically expensive. The greatest opportunities do not go to the people who are buried under mountains of busy work. They go to the people who intentionally design space in their lives to observe, to think, and to strike aggressively when the right moment arrives. There is a fifth way that hard work destroys your wealth, and it is perhaps the most psychologically devastating of all: the promotion illusion. This is the false promise that if you just sacrifice enough, stay late enough, and prove your loyalty to the corporate ladder, the company will eventually make you wealthy. Let's look at how that movie actually plays out. You grind relentlessly for 3 years. You skip family vacations, work through weekends, and endure immense stress. Finally, the promotion arrives. Your salary bumps from $75,000 to $95,000, a $20,000 raise. You feel validated. You feel like the meritocracy works. But what you fail to see is the devastating macro math. That $20,000 raise cost you 3 unrecoverable years of your life. Meanwhile, the corporation generated tens of millions of dollars in net value from your department alone. Your raise represents a mere fraction of the wealth you actually created. The vast majority of that value went directly to the shareholders and executives, the people who own the system, not the people who operate it. And then comes the cruelest twist: lifestyle creep. The moment that raise hits your account, your lifestyle expands to absorb it. You move to a slightly nicer apartment, upgrade your vehicle, and eat at more expensive restaurants. This is the silent killer of the middle class. Within 6 months, you are spending exactly what you earn, meaning you are in the exact same precarious financial position you were in before the promotion, except now you are 3 years older, 3 years more exhausted, and completely dependent on your employer to sustain your new baseline. I have watched this heartbreaking cycle repeat thousands of times over my career. Brilliant, talented individuals spending their prime years climbing a ladder that is leaning against the entirely wrong wall. They finally reach the top only to realize they spent 30 years building someone else's dream while their own destiny sat in a corner gathering dust. The CEO of a Fortune 500 company might earn a massive salary of $20 million a year, but the founder who owns the equity is worth billions. The difference isn't talent, effort, or intelligence. The difference is positioning. One traded time, the other traded vision for equity. Every hour you spend exclusively chasing a corporate promotion is an hour you could have spent building an asset you actually own, a business, a portfolio, or a scalable skill. Stop pouring 100% of your life force into someone else's empire and start reserving your best energy to build your own. Stop climbing the ladder. Build the building instead. If conventional hard work isn't the path to wealth, what is? The answer is leverage. True wealth requires you to deploy leverage in 4 distinct forms. The first form of leverage is capital, money working for you so you never have to work for money. Every single dollar you invest into a high-quality, productive asset is a tiny, loyal employee that works for you 24 hours a day, never takes a vacation, and never asks for a raise. When Berkshire Hathaway buys shares of Coca-Cola, we are leveraging millions of workers worldwide who generate dividend streams for us while we sleep. The second form of leverage is knowledge. A single, profound insight can be worth more than 10,000 hours of physical labor. When I recognized that Apple was not merely a technology company, but an incredibly sticky consumer brand with an unparalleled ecosystem that created massive customer switching costs, that single insight generated over $100 billion in profit for Berkshire. One insight, not 10,000 hours of manual labor. The third form of leverage is systems. A business is a system. Once built correctly, it operates flawlessly without your personal day-to-day presence. Ray Kroc didn't spend his life flipping burgers. He built a highly scalable system called McDonald's that flipped billions of burgers without him ever touching a spatula. The system executed the work. Ray collected the wealth. The fourth form of leverage is other people's time. This is the foundational mechanic of capitalism. Every successful business owner in history builds substantial wealth by hiring talented individuals whose collective labor generates significantly more value than their salary. Done ethically, this is the engine of economic progress. The wealthy master all 4 forms of leverage. The middle class, conversely, relies on only one input, their own manual labor. And that single dependency on personal effort is the exact chain that keeps them running on the financial treadmill forever. I spend 80% of my working day sitting quietly, reading and thinking. Not because I am lazy, but because reading and thinking are the highest leverage activities a human being can perform. One great idea derived from a morning of quiet reading can generate more wealth than an entire lifetime of physical grind. That is not an exaggeration. That is the literal story of my life over 7 decades. Let's bring this truth home. Working hard is not a financial virtue. It is a low-yield strategy with a strict mathematical ceiling. The individuals who build generational fortunes do not outwork the world, they outthink the world. They use capital, knowledge, systems, and team leverage to completely decouple their income from their time. If you want to exit the trap, here is your playbook. First, stop measuring your value by how many hours you work. Start measuring it solely by how much value you create per hour. If you can generate the same result in 4 hours that used to take you 12, you haven't become lazy. You have just become 8 hours richer. Second, guard your mental clarity at all costs. Never sacrifice your ability to think strategically on the altar of perpetual busyness. Your brain is your ultimate wealth-generating asset. Protect it from exhaustion. Third, build or acquire at least one system that produces revenue completely independent of your physical presence. An investment portfolio, a business, rental real estate, or intellectual property. Anything that works while you sleep. Fourth, dedicate at least one uninterrupted hour every single day to reading and thinking. No mindless scrolling, no superficial news consumption. Read deep books on business, investing, human psychology, and history. This is the single highest return activity available on this planet. The world will continuously pressure you to work harder. I am telling you to think harder. In the end, the people who build true, lasting wealth are not the ones who log the most hours. They are the ones who made the clearest, highest quality decisions. And you cannot make world-class decisions when you are exhausted, overwhelmed, and trapped inside someone else's system. Stop working hard for money. Master leverage, think with absolute clarity, and never confuse motion with progress.